So it's a pretty good accumulation so far. You can see all these, starting to run out of space. And I've gone through basically these note cards. I have this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one left. Today is a very important day, not because it's my birthday, June 16th, 2021. Today I am starting to organize all the research I've done for the new book. So this is like, I consider this the day that I'm starting the second book in my 4 Virtues series. I'm Ryan Holiday. I'm working now on this 4-book series on the cardinal virtues: courage, temperance, justice, and wisdom. Whenever I start a book, I have only the vaguest sense of where I'm going. You have an idea, but you don't know. And when I started this book, I wasn't sure the material was going to be there. Obviously, I know what self-discipline is. I know how important it is. I know what it means to me. Could I write an entire book about it? And what if I couldn't? What if the research wasn't there? And I was so tired. This is my 12th book in 10 years. By the time I sat down to write, I was more than 2 years into thinking and researching and writing note cards, accumulating and talking about these ideas to formulate what would ultimately appear in the pages. I wasn't sure if I could do it. And I think because I was intimidated about whether I could do it, I started to doubt whether the material was there. So I was going through the note cards on the book today, and I found this one, which I think is illustrative of the process. So this is a note I wrote to myself in red Sharpie. I don't know when I wrote it, but I said, trusting the process, keep doing your note cards. When you check this in June, if you've done your work, there will be a book here. This is exactly what I needed to see, because like 2.5 weeks ago, it did not feel like there was a book here. And it's very obvious there's a book here, because I trusted the process, I did the work, chugged away at it. And here we are. I had a huge breakthrough this morning. So I was out for a run with my kids. And the thing that hit me, it was like, I can do a similar structure as Stillness is the Key. I can do the mind, body, spirit. Really, it's physical discipline, mental discipline, spiritual discipline. That's the hierarchy. It's sort of low the body, higher is the mind, and then higher still is the spirit. All of a sudden, it just hit me who the first 2 characters were. For the mental, emotional discipline, Queen Elizabeth. And I was thinking, I should do Lou Gehrig. As I was going through all the notes today, Lou Gehrig hit me as the perfect exemplar of what I want to talk about physically. And then I was thinking I might do Cato the Elder and Cato the Younger sort of jointly as the higher plane. So they take this discipline almost to a spiritual level. So I may have cracked it. At the very least, I know the 3-part structure. I have at least 2, possibly 3 main characters. And then I'm officially done going through all the note cards. These are my note cards for today. Basically, when I start a book, I open up a new folder in Google Docs. And then each piece gets an individual section. So today, start the Google Doc. This is right here. And then, just the intro. So I start a new doc, on intro. There we go. On one of my books, before I started, I had this dream that I was going into space or something, and it was the process of getting ready, driving to the space station, getting in the spaceship, and the countdown, and I woke up right as it was blasting off. And to me, it was a message from my subconscious that I was ready to start that book. I think it was ego. That's how it goes on every book. It's this sort of slow accumulation of material, and then one day you're ready. In this case, it was about a month after I'd started going through the note cards. I knew that I could spend forever going through this thing, and at some point you have to act. You have to take action, as the Stoics say, right? The discipline of perception, thinking about it, organizing, this is all really important, but at a certain point the rubber has to meet the road. You have to start. So this is what I have. This is the section so far. So I have roughly 15 little sections in various phases of completion. It's not bad. This is probably 10,000 words, 15,000 words. This book is about 60,000, 65,000 words. I'm maybe a fifth, a sixth of the way through the process. This is obviously just the loosest. This isn't anywhere near like polished prose, but there's this great rule in writing. It's just a couple crappy pages a day. As long as I wake up, chip away at the project, make a little forward progress, I can always refine and make it better. That's what I'm doing. This is a big moment in the book. I'm not quite done with part 1, but I've put it all together in one document, and I'm printing it out. and I will hold the first pages of the book in my hand. This is the end of July, so I've basically been at work at this a month and a half or so. 17,202 words that I will have in my hand. So that's basically a third of what the book needs to be. And it's weird, I have a really strong sense of part 2 and 3. Actually, like a lot of the chapters I'm really excited about doing are done. This is real. Well, it is officially August. I did a big stack of note cards this weekend to get caught up, and I am starting part 2 of the book. I'm sort of calling it loosely a wrap on part 1. I think I want the main figure to be Queen Elizabeth for part 2. I've read most of this book and I thought it was okay. And then I read this book over the weekend. It was all right. I don't have the material that I need to make her the main character yet, so I'm gonna put a pin in that. What I found the most important thing when you're writing a book is momentum. You have to have forward momentum. If you get bogged down, if you get stuck, that's when you start doubting yourself, that's when you get nervous, that's when you get frustrated. And so I'm gonna actually skip the intro to part 2 and just work on the next chapter that I wanna do in the book. I just wanna get some forward momentum. So putting a pin in this, and then I'm gonna work on this section now and just keep going. It is a Sunday in late August and I'm working in the office. I usually don't write on the weekends, I do research on the weekends, but I'm writing today because I had to fly over the weekend, my first trip in 18 months. Part of the reason I've been so productive in this period is I haven't been traveling. I'm back working on the emotions in the Fit of Passions chapter. I thought I would bring stuff with me. I forgot the note cards stupidly, but I had this breakthrough just sort of thinking about it on the project. I was like, you know what? I don't want to do a chapter on controlling your temper because I did that in Stillness. I don't want a chapter on passions and emotions. So I was able to figure out how to combine them, but now I have to figure out, kind of have these like extra cards. You end up doing a lot more research than you end up using, but that's much better than the alternative problem, which is to do not enough research and not be able to write about something. But now this big stack of note cards I'm probably not going to use, but a little bittersweet, but it's a good problem to have. Don't do this anymore. So I'm leaving tomorrow for the publicity tour for Courage. So now I have to spend some time today thinking about what stuff, because I can't take all of this. I'm thinking just these note cards, these in a couple sections. I don't know, but I have to do some work. You start a book and you start getting momentum going, and then life intervenes. It gets in the way. As I was knee deep into Discipline is Destiny, I had to stop and go on a multi-city, multi-week tour of publicity and press and events for the book. I lost weeks because of that. Now, because we're insane, we're about to embark on a 4,000-mile cross-country road trip with 2 kids under the age of 4 in this camper, and we're gonna do some awesome stuff, but a big reason is we have to get to Los Angeles. I have to do a bunch of interviews and a bunch of marketing stuff for the book. I would have liked not to be able to do it, but I have to do it. When you get locked into a routine as a writer, it's amazing. And then to even do one thing in the middle of the day disrupts that, and to get in an RV and drive across the country in the middle of a pandemic with kids and all this stuff, it was insanely disruptive. But I tried to just tell myself, am I making one small contribution today? Am I doing one thing? Is it a note card? Is it a book that I'm reading? Is it an idea that I'm having? Am I tweaking something? I just wanted to chip away at it. I didn't want that time to be completely lost. You just have to show up. Discipline is not being amazing all the time. It can sometimes be just average results day in and day out, and not losing that beat, losing that rhythm, as Marcus Aurelius talks about, more than you can help it. It's Sunday, September 25th. I'm supposed to be writing. I wanted to be working on the Queen chapter of the new book, but I couldn't, because instead I am not just signing lots and lots of copies of Courage is Calling, but the person who was supposed to deliver them was late and they didn't have a way of unloading them, and so I spent the entire day not writing and instead unloading boxes off of a truck. Such is life. You do the job. It's not all writing as part of this job. Sometimes it's manual labor, but it is what it is. Hey, Steve.
You made it.
I made which one?
Advice How To number 3.
No way.
You made it.
The New York Times list?
You made it.
That's fantastic.
Congrats.
it's a great way to kick off the series, I think.
What's really clear now, that's 3 books in a row for you at the time. So
Yeah, very exciting, Steve. Well, that's amazing news, and I'll get back to work.
Right, man. Okay.
Thanks.
Congrats.
Bye. This morning, I'm working on the discipline book. I was gone for 2 weeks working on the launch of the courage book, and I had my research assistant go through and edit. So when I'm writing, I have this little trick that I came up with, which is basically as I'm writing, if there's a date, there's a detail that I'm not convinced of or sure about, like I just put an X or I put insert. To me, as I'm writing, it's all about momentum. You want as much momentum as possible. So I try not to get slowed down with like piddly details, like things that need to be fact checked, things that need to be researched. I don't just want to grab them from Wikipedia or whatever. I want the actual thing, but I'm not going to stop and go do that while I'm trying to get the crux of what I'm saying. Oftentimes there's little things like, what was the weather the morning that I'm talking about some incident? What color was the person's shirt? Or what year were they born? I don't want to get bogged down with that. I had my research assistant go through the book while I was gone. I wasn't touching it, they were, and now I need to go back through and spend some time correcting those little things. So I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so this one is 12. There's 12 notes. All right, so this is a chapter about Robert Moses. I was showing you as I was writing this chapter from The Power Broker. Well, like I wanted to talk, for instance, about how many acres of parkland he developed, how many playgrounds he built, how many miles of highways, bridges, etc. I wanted all of that in there, but I'm not going to look up these numbers. It's going to take forever. So, Robert Moses was not a kind man, but he was effective. He got more done in his decades in power than few believe possible, building and then 2.5 million acres of parkland, 658 playgrounds, blah, blah, blah. So all that, okay, so that's good. Now comes a somewhat fun step. I am emailing my research assistant, and I'm gonna have him print out the whole book, and I'm gonna go through the first 2/3 in printed form, which will be the first time I've seen any of the book printed out. It is early December 2021, so I'm 5-6 months into writing what I'm now calling Self-Discipline is Salvation. And the book went out to 3 different people. I sent it to my old researcher and friend Christo, my editor Niels Parker, and my agent Steve. And I got notes back, and I've been integrating them. I'm making some progress. I'm tightening, I'm polishing. One of the things I'm doing from their notes is like the Lou Gehrig chapter, which is the opening chapter in part 1, is way too long. And so I'm having to take parts of it that I like that aren't going to work there and find where I move them later in the book. So it actually creates sort of callbacks and tags. It'll overall improve the thing. And I'm not really getting rid of anything that I love. I'm not having to really delete that much, but I am moving stuff around, and I'm just tightening and polishing and making a bunch of progress on the book. Hey Niels, I'm just going through the notes on the Temperance book. How did you feel like part 2 wrapped up?
The last 2 chapters especially are really poignant, really tight. I think they sum up everything about personal accountability and doing your best, and all of this is in service of being and doing the best you can and measuring yourself accordingly. So it wraps up, I think, really tightly.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and it just occurred to me I like when the characters can appear in multiple books. So to be able to do a story on Frank Robinson in the 3rd book, having also done a story about him in the 2nd, that's really great.
Yeah, and same with Belichick, and I'm sure there'll be multiple. It speaks to the integrity of the idea that these 4 virtues are both singular and interconnected.
Yeah, totally. Okay, cool. Anything else that popped up that you thought we needed to talk about? I got your point. I think on the punctuality chapter, what I'm just doing is like, punctuality is a part of just respecting time in general. So that the title of that chapter is going to be Respect Time.
Yeah, I think having a phrase like that to anchor that chapter would really help. The idea of respect for time, this non-renewable resource, I don't think people think about it like that. So I think that's really compelling.
No, that makes total sense. All right, cool, man.
Cool.
Thanks. It's funny, in the book, I talk about the sort of paralyzation that can come from perfectionism. You want it to be perfect. You have really high standards. I tell the story of Martha Graham. She's about to put out this dance that she's worked on for an entire summer. She's taken all this funding to do, but it's just not where she wants it to be. One of her directors comes in and says, no, it has to go out. You cannot be trapped by this. He says, transitions are important. Submissions are important. You can't get stuck. That's a really important form of temperance, because if you think it's just about rigidity, about perfectionism, about these impossible standards, you're right, it's impossible. You'll never actually get it out. And so here it is. It's Christmas Eve, almost 2:00. I got to get home to my family. I could fiddle on this thing for another couple hours. I got more note cards to do. There's definitely things I will address before this book goes to print. But for now, I just have to send it in. I have to send it into the editor. It has to be someone else's problem for a while so I can have distance, so I can get feedback. That's another thing in the book. Like, if you're not getting feedback, you're not getting better. And if you cling it too closely, too tightly to your chest, it's too precious to you, you're too afraid or insecure, or conversely, egotistical, you'll never get it out and it'll never get done. So that's what I'm about to do. I'm gonna go see my family, return to regular life for a little bit, come back to it after I've gotten feedback, and then get this thing done. Hey Sam.
What?
Email from Adrian came in. Says, hi Ryan, just finished my first read through and I'm delighted. This is certainly the book we hoped for, and temperance is a great subject. We'll have a few notes for you over the next few days. Nothing very drastic. Bravo, Adrian.
Nice.
Yeah. No, but this means they'll probably accept it, and so if no notes, that basically means it's accepted. So it's just on me. The limbo period on the book is you send it in, and then depending on whether they say you were close or not, it's like, did you meet your contractual obligation? So aside from like, is the book what I want it to be? Is it good enough? All that. And so this is a big breakthrough, and I'm excited about that. In publishing, there's certain terms that mean a lot in publishing. Maybe they don't mean anything to other people, but basically you sign a contract, you sell a book, and then you go write that book. And you get a little bit of the money when you sell it, you sign the contract. But really, it's when you submit the book, you submit your manuscript, and then there's the potential payment upon delivery and acceptance, meaning you submit the book, and then they tell you whether you're close or not, whether you're in the ballpark or not, whether you shit the bed or not, basically. They tell you whether it's going to work. That's the big checkpoint on a project like this. You've been working on it for months, alone, by yourself, on your own, then you submit it. Titles are so important on a book, and yet they're not important at all. Obviously, what matters is what you're saying. Then you have to figure out, what's that being built around? You know, people say never judge a book by its cover. Of course you judge a book by its cover. That's why it has a cover. And the same goes for titles. All right, so I texted Joanne Bass. She's the highest ranking non-commissioned officer in the Air Force, whether she liked Discipline is Destiny or Self-Discipline is Salvation. And she said Discipline is Destiny is better than the other one. So that I'm excited about. And then Stephen Pressfield emailed me back, no joke, like 5 seconds after I messaged him. And he said, Discipline is Destiny because it's true and it rings true, and partly because it works with Courage's Calling. So great. Now I'm going to call my editor, Adrian, and see what he thinks. Hey, Adrian.
Hey, Ryan.
How are you?
Excellent. Yourself?
I'm doing good. This is actually the perfect time to have this conversation because we've got some covers to look at, and then we've got a title to kick around.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what you think. What do you think of how it looks on those covers?
I really like the chariot with the 4 horses myself.
Sure. The chariots look better in the mosaic on the cover than it actually did when I was looking at just the mosaic. But how do you think about title?
Well, the choice is self-discipline is salvation.
Yeah.
Or
Discipline is Destiny.
I would rather make it very clear that we're talking about self-discipline rather than discipline.
One of the benefits of Discipline is Destiny is that there is the expression character is destiny, right? And so we're really saying that discipline is sort of predictive and deterministic. I asked Stephen Pressfield what he thought. I asked Joanne Bass, who's like the highest ranking officer in the Air Force, what she thought. They both jumped back that Discipline is Destiny is better, it's shorter and more to the point.
If you called it
discipline and the subtitle, The Power of Self-Control. From the point of view of explaining what the book is, you've done that. I guess I'm inclining towards discipline as destiny.
Yeah, me too. Do we want to maybe see what it looks like on these covers? The working title as I was writing most of it was something like Self-Discipline is Salvation. But it just wasn't working for me, and it just never felt right. And I built the idea of salvation into the book, but it just wasn't there. One of my favorite expressions dating back to Heraclitus is this idea that character is fate. The other way they render that is character is destiny. Your character determines who you are, what you're going to do, where you're going to end up. If we think about discipline as being similar. Discipline determines where you're going to end up, who you're going to be. The book was done, submitted into production, and the title switched. That meant going back and rewriting and tweaking and adjusting things. But as soon as I got that title, I knew the stars were aligning. So I got covers back from my editor today. This is with the new title that we're thinking about. Here, let me load it. So this is what the new title would be, Discipline is Destiny. And so we're looking at a charioteer on the cover, or a horse racer, which was like the most popular sport in Rome at that time, but it was often the metaphor they used to talk about self-control, or sophrosyne, which is the idea of like mastering oneself. So he likes 1, 2, 3. He likes 4, but I think brown is too boring. I think I like blue. I like blue. So I guess it really comes down to what's the right image. This one doesn't have the chariot, but it's still a horse. I don't know, I think that could work. Now comes the fun part. It's my 119 draft, and I have to sit down and edit it. The main thing I want to think about now, this far in the process, that the editor's already said they're into it. I want this to be thinner by the time I'm done with it. I'm mostly going to be going in with a black Sharpie, and anywhere I've said 2 words that one will do, I want to get rid of one of those words. My goal for editing now is to just tighten and refine and improve. So it's kind of late in the game, but I do have one more chapter. I wanted to write a chapter maybe about boundaries, thinking about one about economy, sort of like knowing the right amount of effort or whatever on a specific project. So I'm gonna see if there's holes to plug, but now I just gotta go through the book and edit this thing. It is now February 2022, and I've just done a final round-ish of notes on the manuscript. I just put them all into the Word doc, and now I've got some like last minute changes I'm making here. But this is a tricky thing that it's a problem I've been having with the book that I've been wrestling with in my mind for now like a month. There's a chapter in Courage is Calling called Make People Bigger. If I'd been able to see into the future, I think I would have saved that chapter. It's about how courage is contagious, and that part of courage or heroism is about making other people heroic by your example. But really, I think one of the things I really want to talk about in being self-contained and self-disciplined is that it should inspire that in other people. And so I think if I was doing the books again, I would have saved that chapter from the first book and put it in the second book. I was talking about with my agent and my editor about it. They were really nervous about the idea of moving one chapter from one book to the other. So I'm having to think about a way that I can do that chapter again with a fresh story. And then what I'm thinking is I'm actually going to put that chapter in each of the 4 books. The idea that the apotheosis, the peak of each one of the virtues is that you inspire it, call it out in other people. So what I love about Cato the Younger, for instance, is that he's so disciplined that he becomes an exemplar, an example of discipline that, for instance, inspires Seneca even in Seneca's last moments on earth as he's forced to die at the hands of Nero. And so you really don't want to be writing additional material at this stage in the book, but one of the notes I got was that the third part of the book was a tad light, and so I think this will address that. So today I'm tweaking that chapter a little bit and adding, but I'm also cutting. So I'm adding this, but I'm gonna have to think, what are some weaker chapters that maybe I don't want to keep in the book that I should cut? So I'll probably end up cutting at least 1 or 2 chapters too. I'm making a lot of those changes and tweaks, but I got to get the book in like right away, and so I'm under the gun a little bit. Now comes the most excruciating part of finalizing a book, which is I have the copy-edited manuscript back of Discipline is Destiny. I've got till the end of the month to turn back what are invariably pedantic, frustrating, repetitive mistakes. About 250 pages of them. And I don't have that much time to do it, so I'm just going to get to work. I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off. You get all these notes, which you want, but you're also immediately resistant to them because they challenge you. They challenge the ego. You have to have some self-discipline. There's a quote I love from George Washington. I actually built one of the chapters in the book around. He says, you must look at everything in the calm and mild light of philosophy. So you first get these notes back from the editor and your ego is challenged and you just put in all this work. You have to get some distance and some perspective. You have to have the discipline, the temperament to step back and go, is this helping me get better or not? It doesn't matter how many hours I worked on it. It doesn't matter how cool I think it is. I've also had to cultivate the discipline on this book to think not just what makes sense here, but what makes sense in the next book and the next book. And I can't just do everything I want right in this moment. I have to be able to think longer term and be a little more strategic. And so a lot of the cuts I ended up making were things, not that I didn't think they were good, they just would make more sense in the next book. But mostly self-discipline is about, Stephen King talks about killing your darlings. You have to make the hard decisions to go, this doesn't meet my standards. This isn't good enough. This is self-indulgent, and you have to ruthlessly cut those things. Even the reading of the audiobook, it's kind of the last time you touch the book, you're having to say literally every word in the book out loud, sometimes multiple times. So even there, like when I look at the notes that I took during the audiobook, there was a whole list of changes that I ended up sending to the editor. You have to have the strength, skill, the exacting standards that allow you to decide what you keep and what you don't. This is the hardest part of a book. Wrapping it up is the hardest part of the book. And usually this is when I'm a complete mess and it consumes my life and all that. And my 5-year-old said to me this morning, he said, Dad, I'm sorry you lost your job. He said, Dad, I'm sorry you lost your job writing books. And I actually take that as a huge compliment because it means that I've been integrated enough and sane enough and normal enough with this book that he thought I wasn't working on it anymore or thought it stopped happening, which to me is kind of what the book is about. Like, how do you have good boundaries? How do you have control of yourself? How do you manage the load properly? It doesn't mean you don't work extremely hard, you do. But how do you integrate the work into your life in a temperate enough way that it doesn't consume you, it doesn't overwhelm you, it doesn't spill over and become other people's problems. And it's funny, that's like the last chapter I'm writing in the book is about boundaries. I really, really like that. Now I'm here, it's the weekend, and I'm trying to chip away at it because I want to get this done. I want to go even more back to regular life. But, sometimes these things overlap, which is always wonderful. I tell a story in the book about Joyce Carol Oates. So when she finishes a manuscript, she lets it sit in a drawer for a year before she publishes it. I don't quite do that. In fact, I don't do anything close to that. But I've had the copy edits on Discipline done for probably a week. They gave me 3 weeks to do it. I did it in less than 2. But I've been sitting on it, just thinking, and every day I'll come in and I'll just touch a little bit. So today, this is April 1st, 2022. I am now officially sending in the copy edits. So the book will go into production from this point forward. All right, book is in, not my problem anymore. All right, I think this is it. So this is the first time I've held the book with some version of the cover on it in my hands. And the crazy part is, like, I remember laying out on this table the note cards that would become this book like 12 months ago, almost exactly, which is pretty insane. A year of day-to-day work on a project, years of thinking and preparing, and then like one day you open it and it's there. This thing that was inconceivable to me as I was staring at this pile of note cards, as I despaired over it ever coming together. It did come together. That is the magic of the process. You don't know how long it's going to take. Don't know how painful it will be. You don't know what will take out of you, but you know if you trust the process, you show up every day, if you maintain that self-discipline. It will get you not necessarily where you want to go, it will get you where you are meant to go. That's what discipline as destiny means. And like the book itself proves this. The thing I was most proud of is not the quality of the writing, not how many copies I think it's going to sell, not even what it looks like, but it was who I was while writing it, which is I got better as a person. I stayed true to what was important to me as a person. I was more balanced. Like temperance to me ultimately comes down to balance. Not work-life balance, but balance across the board. That even when I was having my doubts about the project, that I didn't lose my mind. I didn't take that out on people around me, that I was there for my kids, that my other businesses and projects didn't suffer, my health didn't suffer, that like I was better for going through it. And that's part of the process too. When we say that discipline is destiny, it's not just that you'll end up somewhere good, it's that you are good in that moment of discipline, that discipline is not just an end, it's a means. The journey itself is gratifying and important and meaningful, and that's what virtue is about. You're not virtuous because of what it can get you. You're not just self-discipline because it will make you successful. You do the right thing, you stick with that discipline because it is the right thing, and it makes you great. Whether you're writing a book or sweeping floors, it's that you're present and fully committed to the thing that's in front of you and that you did your absolute best with it. That's what discipline is about. When I hold this thing, now I've signed thousands of copies of it, but when I touch it, that's what it means to me, and that's what the book's about. And the main thing now, even as I record this and this book goes out into the world, the main thing for me is that I'm knee deep in the next one, that I'm back to the process, showing up every day, doing what I need to do, which is all we can do. If you like these Daily Stoic videos, I've been hard at work at my next project, which is my new book, Discipline is Destiny, The Power of Self-Control. You can pre-order it anywhere books are sold, but I would ask that you go to dailystoic.com/pre-order to support me and the book. I've been hard at work for 2 years on this book. I think discipline is one of the most important virtues you can have as a human being. It takes a lot of discipline to run and manage this channel. Check it out, dailystoic.com/pre-order. I hope you like this video. I hope you subscribe. But what I really want you to subscribe to is our Daily Stoic email, 1 bit of Stoic wisdom, totally for free to the largest community of Stoics ever in existence. You can sign up at dailystoic.com/email. There's no spam. You can unsubscribe at any time. I love sending it. I've sent it every day for the last 6 years, and I hope to see you there at dailystoic.com/email.